mark India's 77th Independence Day on Global Lens today, let's take a step back and analyze India's foreign policy, the trajectory it has followed over the years and how it is currently poised under Prime Minister Narendra Modi. One thing there is no doubt about is that India's global stature has only risen in recent times. From facing sanctions from the West following its nuclear tests and being reduced to the status of a pariah a couple of decades ago, to now being feted in world capitals, recognized for its contribution to global peace and development efforts, hailed as an emerging regional and global power, perceived as the leader of the global South, and widely respected for its vibrant and robust democracy. India has certainly come a long way. Testament to that, among other things, is the fact that India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi was recently the toast of the US Capitol as he visited the White House on a state visit. India and the United States signed an unprecedented and historic defense and technology transfer deal, which meant New Delhi entered an exclusive club. Soon after, the French president rolled out the red carpet for Prime Minister Modi in Paris and conferred on him the highest civilian and military French honor, the Grand Cross of the Legion of Honor. Many in the Arab world, from the UAE to Egypt, have hosted India's Prime Minister and reaffirmed their commitment to their ties with New Delhi. Even in the face of international pressure, especially from the Western capitals and media, India asserted its strategic autonomy on the Russia-Ukraine war, for instance, while repeatedly calling for peace and dialogue and also maintaining its long-standing relationship with Moscow. India continued to import Russian oil even after the West imposed sanctions on Moscow. And India, in fact, minced no words in calling out Western hypocrisy on this issue. Prime Minister Modi's words of advice to Russian President Vladimir Putin that this is not an era of war resonated globally and were echoed by many Western leaders. From non-alignment, India has moved to multi-alignment in an increasingly polarized world. Next month, India is set to host the most powerful world leaders at the G20 summit in New Delhi. Of course, plenty of challenges still remain. Even though New Delhi has taken a very tough stance on Pakistan-sponsored terrorism, including carrying out surgical strikes on terror launchpads in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir and the Balakot airstrikes inside Pakistani airspace, terrorism continues to be a major threat to India's national security. China perhaps presents the single biggest challenge to India's foreign policy today. An unresolved border dispute, unending tensions along the line of actual control, a constant threat to our sovereignty, and Beijing's growing aggression, expansionism and hegemony are a constant thorn in India's side. Then there is the challenge of balancing its ties with the United States on the one hand and Russia on the other at a time when the Ukraine war is still raging. And India's quest for a seat at the high table, a permanent seat in the UN Security Council, remains unfulfilled. So just where does India's foreign policy stand today and where is it going? What have been its most noteworthy accomplishments and what are the most intractable challenges? Let's dissect this with our panel of experts. All right, joining me on this Independence Day special edition of Global Lens today is Ambassador Manju Seth, former diplomat. We also have with us Professor Rajan Kumar, foreign policy expert. And in a moment, we're also hoping to be joined by Ambassador Shashank, former Foreign Secretary of India. All right, a very happy Independence Day to my guests. Let me start with Ambassador Manju Seth. Ma'am, today we are taking a step back and looking at the big picture of India's foreign policy. As I pointed out at the start of the show, we have come a long way, but there are also challenges galore. Let's divide this discussion into two parts, the accomplishments and the challenges. So let's begin with the most noteworthy accomplishments. How significant do you think is the fact that increasingly Western capitals, as indeed the rest of the world, now looks at India as an emerging regional and global power And like I said, perhaps the biggest testament to that is how the red carpet has been rolled out for Prime Minister Narendra Modi again and again in one Western capital after another. And it's not just the West. We've also seen it happen in the Arabic world. How do you perceive these recent developments, and what do you think they tell us about the trajectory of India's foreign policy?
First of all, let me wish all of you a very happy Independence Day. And coming to your question, yes, India has come a long way from an era of non-alignment and to an era of multi-alignment and also strategic autonomy. Much more assertive in its views, in its stance on various issues, and balancing various aspects. And at all times, keeping its interests paramount and at the top of the table. Yes, we saw how the US, France, in quick succession, feted our Prime Minister, and it was for the Prime Minister and for the country, an honor for the country as well. And where they are understanding that India is an emerging, responsible, and reliable emerging country, emerging power and partner. And I think that is an important message of, earlier the image of India used to be of India as a developing world, a developing third world country, which can be maybe, interacted with once in a while, otherwise to be ignored. Very often our views were not always given the due importance that we would have liked to see. But now that has changed, because we don't hesitate to call, say, a spade, and to point out, what is our interest, along with, of course, balancing our friends our partnerships with different countries. As you rightly mentioned, China, Russia, the US, our global partnerships have realigned, and one of our greatest achievements has been in successfully navigating the changing geopolitical environment and keeping India at the forefront. And it is very likely that in the next, and of course our economic heft has increased, so that is an important contributor to the overall strength of India. And of course our foreign policy choices are also, I think I should say, a little more mature, little more, able to understand what is happening in the world and how we can make the best out of the current situation. And as you mentioned, yes, there are many challenges, and we need to negotiate and navigate those as well. But yes, keeping India's interests paramount at all times. Neha.
We'll certainly come to the bit about challenges a little later in this discussion. So very interesting. You say, yes, we have moved from non-alignment to multi-alignment. This is an era of strategic autonomy that India is asserting, and national interests being paramount. That is something that has been made abundantly clear by India, in recent times. Professor Rajan Kumar, let me come to you. As I mentioned, a little over 2 decades ago, we faced sanctions for carrying out our nuclear tests from Western capitals. We were globally isolated. We were treated as an international pariah. Today, India is actually in an exclusive club of a handful of countries that the United States has chosen to finally share sensitive defense technology with. The fact that our Prime Minister was recently on a historic state visit to the United States, and we heard the most powerful man in the world, the US President Joe Biden, saying the India-US relationship will be the defining relationship or partnership of the 21st century. Of course, we have our challenges. But do you believe that it would be fair to say that India has in many ways arrived on the global stage and its voice is heard, its voice matters today more than ever before? Not to, of course, mention the fact that just next month we are going to host the G20 summit right here in New Delhi.
Thank you, Ms. Neha, Khanna, and happy Independence Day to all of you. I think, in my view, India has made a remarkable transformation. Among the post-colonial states, India is unique in the terms of, the kind of political system stability that we have provided to a huge country for the last 77 years. And stability is one important factor, in my view, which shapes the perception of India to other countries. Number one. And the second most important, and as Prime Minister was mentioning in today's speech also, India is going to be the third largest economy in the world. It's fifth right now, and very soon it will be third without any doubt. There is absolutely no doubt about it. And Prime Minister was also mentioning about the very huge middle class that we have prepared. And what does that mean? That also means that we have reduced our poverty level to approximately, say, about 10%, from a huge, 30, 40% to 10%. So that is an important transformation that I see, and political stability amidst the turbulence, because, the world is facing crisis. We face the COVID crisis, economic stagnation throughout the world, and after that we have seen the war. But India continued to grow despite all the turbulence. And as you know, any foreign policy responds to two things in a specific. One is the domestic requirement, and the second is the external global environment. So in terms of, India's foreign policy response, India's diplomacy, we have responded really well during the COVID, and also India's economy is one of the fastest rising economy among the bigger economies. But these are the major transformations, but also let's not forget the digital transformation. And India is one of the leading digital part today, and that's exactly the reason that why you see such welcome that you are referring to, as President Biden is saying that, United States is going to have a very long-term sustained relationship with India. So even US is not doing any charity. US knows the importance of India because of its economy, and also because as a counterbalance to China, and also for the strategic stability in the South Asian region. So because of these reasons, there is a huge convergence of interest, but also, as Ambassador Madam rightly pointed out, and that we have moved from some of the things that we pursued in the past, but also there is an element of continuity there. When we say we moved from non-alignment to multi-alignment, we also, the strategic autonomy that we pursued during the Cold War period, that continues in a different form. And of course, the non-alignment was a kind of equidistance from the big powers who were trying to make India an alliance partner. And now we are saying that we'll engage with all the powers which matter to India. So we are having a very close military and strategic partnership with the United States, but at the same time we are also a member of the BRICS Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and we have good relations with a number of countries which are critical to the United States. So these are very important changes that we see, and of course India has arrived to the stage. India is the leading power today. The world's perception of India had changed, and it had changed finally because of the reasons that I referred to now, just now. So India has arrived without any doubt, and all the countries in the world, they consider India to be the leading power and as a model. For instance, the US and European countries are not really taken as a model in the large number of global southern countries. China also has it because of its communist regime. It also has a different kind of problem, which may not be acceptable to many of countries in the global south. But India as a model of democracy and development with diversity.
Absolutely.
So these are the reasons why that India is very important, not only for the global north but also for the global south. And in the G20, you'll see that India is also the voice of the global south, and India is trying to bridge. Trying to work as a bridge between the north and the south. So that's the very important role that India has assigned to itself, and it has also been accepted by both the north and south. So these are the important achievements of India, in my view.
Absolutely correct. India is very strategically positioned as a bridge between the north and the south.